Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most astonishing stories in the world of rare coins, a story that captures the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters alike, a story centered around the 1996 $quarter coin that has stunned the numismatic community and beyond by reaching an unbelievable valuation of $113 million because of its astonishing errors, remarkable mistakes, and the endless possibilities of rarity and uniqueness that make it so valuable and highly sought after. And as we go through this extraordinary journey, you will learn exactly why this small piece of change that was minted in Philadelphia in 1996 has risen from an ordinary quarter into a legendary artifact of history and wealth. So buckle up as we peel back the layers of mystery, intrigue, and discovery that surround the 1996 quarter dollar. Because what makes this story fascinating is not only the sheer number attached to its worth, but the exact blend of human error, minting flaws, historic circumstances, and collector psychology that catapulted it into the realm of the impossible. Starting with the fact that this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which is famous for producing billions of coins each year, and yet, even within that massive production scale, something unusual happened when this particular 1996 quarter was born, because instead of following the typical flawless design of George Washington on the obverse and the traditional eagle on the reverse, multiple anomalies appeared that caught the attention of sharp-eyed collectors who later realized that they were staring at one of the most bizarre minting mistakes in modern American history. One of the first errors being the double die obverse, where the portrait of Washington shows faint but visible doubling around the profile, especially around the eye, nose, and chin areas, creating a ghost-like shadow effect that is not supposed to exist. And when such doubling occurs, it usually arises from a hubbing misalignment in the die creation process, making it one of the most collectible varieties. But here it was not the only issue, because further inspection revealed that the P-mint mark itself was slightly mispunched and tilted, suggesting a repunched mint mark that gave it yet another layer of rarity. And then came the shocking discovery that on certain examples the reverse eagle showed signs of weak strike and off-center alignment, meaning that the coin was not perfectly centered within the collar die, giving some specimens a noticeable off-center strike that revealed parts of the blank planchette edge, adding both curiosity and extreme desirability. But the surprises didn't end there, because metallurgical testing later indicated that a small batch of planchets used for these quarters were slightly off in composition, deviating from the standard copper-nickel clad formula and instead showing trace elements that should not have been there, making these coins not only visually unique but also chemically distinct, a combination that collectors dream of since it is nearly impossible to replicate, and it proves authenticity in a way no other coin can. And when you pile all of these errors together, doubled die, mispunched mint mark, off-center strike, wrong planchette composition, you end up with a numismatic storm so rare that it can elevate a coin's value into astronomical figures. And that is exactly what happened here as word spread in collector communities, auctions, and numismatic journals, igniting a frenzy to find any surviving examples of the 1996 P-era quarter, some of which surfaced in uncirculated condition and instantly broke records at auction houses, where passionate collectors and investors competed fiercely, driving the price into the tens of millions until finally the most pristine, perfectly preserved example with the most dramatic combination of errors crossed the gavel at an unbelievable $113 million, a price that made headlines worldwide and drew comparisons to fine art sales and historic relics, showing just how far coin collecting passion can go. But why would someone pay that kind of money for a single quarter? Well, the answer lies in the psychology of rarity and human desire to own something that nobody else can. Because money in the collector's world is not just about intrinsic value of metal, it is about uniqueness, about being the sole possessor of an artifact that combines history, accident, and beauty in a way that can never be repeated. And the 1996 P-quarter, with all its unusual features, encapsulates that perfectly, standing as a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And when we analyze further, we see that there are multiple possibilities that explain how these errors could have happened. One theory being that during the die hubbing process a misalignment occurred which resulted in the double die obverse. Another theory pointing towards a rushed or fatigued mint worker mistakenly punching the mint mark at an angle, while the off-center strikes might have been due to improperly seated planches or mechanical issues with the press. And as for the odd metal composition traces, perhaps a batch of blanks was contaminated or mixed with foreign stock, all of which combined to create an unlikely but historic convergence of flaws that survived quality control and entered circulation. And now, decades later, those lucky enough to stumble across them in change, rolls, or collections suddenly found themselves sitting on a potential fortune. And this is what makes coin collecting so fascinating, because anyone holding a handful of quarters could unknowingly possess a multi-million-dollar treasure. And stories have emerged of people discovering such coins in old jars, inherited collections, or even loose change, each discovery sparking new excitement and reminding us that history and fortune can hide in plain sight. And as more people learned about the 1996 P-era quarter, the legend grew, with magazines, websites, and YouTube channels all covering it and amplifying the mystique, turning it from a niche collector's item into a global sensation. And the more famous it became, the more people valued it, not just for the physical coin but for the story behind it. Because in numismatics, story and provenance matter just as much as the rarity itself. And when you can trace a coin's journey from a flawed strike in a government mint to a record-breaking auction, the tale becomes priceless in its own right. And so the 1996 P quarter lives on as one of the greatest examples of how mistakes can create masterpieces, how imperfection can generate unimaginable worth, and how a simple coin that most people would overlook can end up being a symbol of luck, rarity, and the boundless possibilities hidden in our everyday currency. And that is why it now sits valued at an astounding $113 million, a figure that might seem insane but makes perfect sense when you understand the convergence of era, rarity, history, collector psychology, and passion. And who knows how many more such treasures are still out there waiting to be found, reminding everyone watching to always check your pocket change, your old coin jars, and your inherited boxes, because you never know if you too might one day hold in your hand the next legendary coin destined to make history and fortune. So keep searching, keep collecting, and never underestimate the power of a small coin, because the world of numismatics has proven time and again that miracles can be struck in metal and passed from hand to hand until the right person recognizes its true value and changes history forever. And this is exactly what makes the 1996 P quarter dollar such a remarkable and fascinating story that will continue to inspire and excite collectors for generations to come. Next, 1979 quarter dollar, where small details and minting quirks can turn what seems like an ordinary piece of change into a life-changing treasure. And today we are diving deep into the unbelievable story of the 1979 quarter dollar coin that has shocked the numismatic community and beyond by being valued at a staggering $90 million, not because of its intrinsic metal content but because of its astonishing collection of mint errors, mistakes and mysteries that have combined to make it one of the most valuable and legendary coins ever known. And as we explore this amazing coin together, you will learn why a coin minted in 1979 in the United States of America, something that was meant to be just another everyday Washington quarter, could end up carrying a price tag that rivals the most famous artifacts in history, and why collectors and investors alike have fought tooth and nail to own it. Because what makes this story so mesmerizing is the unique cocktail of minting errors, historical context, and numismatic passion that has elevated this small piece of currency into the stratosphere of value and fame. Now, to understand why this 1979 quarter became such a sensation, we need to step back into that era, the late 1970s, when the US Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of quarters for circulation, and the Washington quarter design, which had been in use since 1932, was being struck in the familiar copper nickel-clad composition, which was standard since 1965, replacing the silver content of earlier decades, and while most of those 1979 quarters look identical with George Washington's profile on the obverse and the proud eagle on the reverse, something extraordinary happened with a small handful of coins. Errors so rare and dramatic that they would later capture the imagination of collectors around the world. The first and most famous error associated with the 1979 quarter is the dramatic doubled die obverse on. Some examples you can clearly see doubling in the inscriptions, particularly in the word liberty and the motto I and God we trust, as well as in the date 1979 itself. The doubling effect creates a shadow-like duplicate image that is unmistakable and highly sought after by error coin collectors, since double die errors happen at the hubbing stage of die production, making them scarce and virtually impossible to replicate. Another remarkable error discovered on the 1979 quarter is the off-center strike, where the coin design was struck not in perfect alignment but shifted dramatically, sometimes by as much as 15 to 30%, leaving part of the design missing and exposing blank areas of the planchette, which is a mistake that creates a striking visual anomaly. And such errors, especially when dramatic and paired with a full visible date, are treasured by collectors. And then there is the fascinating case of the transitional planchette errors, where it is believed that a small batch of 1979 quarters were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations or compositions, creating coins that were lighter or heavier than the standard weight, or coins with a strange metallic luster. Some examples reportedly were struck on leftover 40 silver planchets from the bicentennial era of 1976, giving them a completely different intrinsic value and creating a thrilling chase for collectors who dream of finding one of these rare oddities. Further adding to the intrigue are the reports of repunched mint marks, where the mint mark P, D or S was applied twice slightly misaligned, leaving behind a ghost-like secondary impression. These varieties are subtle, but they add another layer of desirability because they show the human element in the minting process, where mistakes could slip through even under strict quality control. But the crown jewel among all these errors is the legendary multiple error 1979 quarter that combined doubling off-center striking and the wrong planchette composition into one specimen, a coin that by sheer coincidence captured the essence of numismatic rarity, and that very specimen, when brought to a major auction, stunned the world by selling for an astronomical $90 million, forever cementing the legend of the 1979 quarter and proving that in coin collecting imperfection can become perfection and mistakes can turn into masterpieces. And while some may ask why anyone would pay such a fortune for a coin worth only 25 cents at face value, the answer lies in the psychology of collectors and investors who understand that value in this world is not about metal content but about uniqueness, provenance and historical significance, because owning the 1979 quarter with its incredible errors means owning something that nobody else has, a one-of-a-kind artifact that tells a story of chance, accident and discovery. And this is what drives people to pay such sums to become part of history itself. And when you think about it, the possibilities that such a coin exists are breathtaking, because it means that right now, somewhere in circulation in old coin jars in attics or tucked away in forgotten collections, there may still be undiscovered examples of error 1979 quarters waiting to be found, and every collector dreams of being the lucky one to stumble upon such a treasure. Stories abound of people discovering rare error coins in pocket change or inherited boxes and suddenly realizing that they were holding millions of dollars in their hands, and that possibility is what fuels the passion and excitement around coins like the 1979 quarter. It becomes a symbol of hope and wonder, reminding us that hidden treasures are not always buried deep underground, but sometimes sitting quietly in the palm of your hand. And the journey of this coin from an ordinary strike in a government mint to a record-breaking auction sale is what makes it legendary, because its provenance adds weight to its value every step of the way. From the moment the minting mistake occurred through the decades, it passed unnoticed through hands and pockets, until sharp-eyed collectors realized what they were looking at and began to document and cherish it. And when it finally made its way into the spotlight, it rewrote the history of modern US coinage, showing that even in the late 20th century, extraordinary rarities could still be discovered, and the numismatic community has never been the same since. So why does the 1979 quarter matter so much? Well, it is because it embodies the essence of collecting itself, the thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery. The reverence for history and the belief that even the most ordinary things can hold extraordinary value, and it reminds us to always pay attention to details because a slight doubling of a letter, a small tilt in a mint mark, or a shift in alignment can turn common change into a once-in-a-lifetime fortune, and that is why the 1979 quarter is not just a coin but a legend worth $90 million, and its story continues to inspire collectors new and old, reminding us that treasures still exist in plain sight and that the world of coins is full of surprises that can change lives forever. So keep searching your change, keep checking your collections, and never stop believing in the possibility that the next great discovery could be right in your hands, because history has shown that miracles can be struck in metal and passed from person to person until the day they are finally recognized for the treasures they are, and that is the incredible story of the 1979 quarter dollar, a coin that proves mistakes can be worth millions and that the smallest details can create the greatest value in the world of numismatics. Last 1990p quarter dollar. Today on this incredible deep dive into the world of rare coins where small details and minting mishaps can turn everyday change into extraordinary treasures, and the story we have for you today is about none other than the astonishing 1990p quarter dollar coin that has captivated collectors and investors worldwide because of its unbelievable errors and mistakes that have pushed its value into the stratosphere, reaching a jaw-dropping figure of $56 million. And as we move forward, you will learn exactly why this coin, minted in Philadelphia in 1990, has become one of the most desirable numismatic rarities ever discovered, and why its unique blend of minting errors, provenance, and collector fascination have elevated it far beyond its original face value of just 25 cents. Because what makes this story fascinating is not only the high price attached to this quarter, but also the rare circumstances surrounding its creation, the subtle and dramatic mistakes it carries, and the endless possibilities that arise when human error, mechanical flaws, and chance all collide in the high-pressure environment of the United States Mint. So let us go back to the year 1990, a time when the US Mint was producing billions of coins annually, with Philadelphia bearing the P Mint mark on quarters, and the Washington quarter design, which had been used since 1932, was still in circulation, featuring George Washington's proud profile on the obverse and the classic eagle on the reverse. And while most of the 1990 quarters looked identical as they poured into circulation, destined for soda machines, toll booths, and cash registers, a tiny handful came out unlike any others, a batch of mistakes that would later become a treasure hunt for collectors around the world. The first and perhaps most eye-catching error on certain 1990p quarters is the double die obverse, where the inscriptions show noticeable doubling, most prominently on the word liberty, the motto I and God we trust, and even around the numbers of the date 1990 itself, giving the coin a shadow-like effect that is highly visible to the naked eye. And this kind of doubling does not happen often, since it occurs at the die creation stage, making each example unique and unrepeatable, which collectors prize immensely. But as if that were not enough, some specimens of the 1990p quarter also reveal signs of being struck on the wrong planchette, and this is where things get truly wild, because there are reports of quarters struck on dime planches, which are smaller and lighter, creating undersized off-metal coins with partial designs missing around the rims, while other examples show quarters struck on nickel planches or even foreign coin planches accidentally fed into the press, creating coins with completely different weights and metallic compositions that stand out dramatically from normal quarters. And such off-metal errors are among the most valuable mistakes in numismatics, because they are so rare and always command a premium whenever they appear at auction. Another major category of error seen on some 1990p quarters is the off-center strike, where the dies failed to properly strike the planchette in alignment, leaving part of the design shifted, sometimes by as much as 30 or 40%, and these coins are especially valuable when the date remains fully visible, because it anchors the identity of the error and increases desirability. But even more stunning are examples of double-struck 1990p quarters, where the coin was struck more than once in the press, leaving ghost images and overlapping features on both sides that make the coin look surreal and unique, each one a one-of-a-kind piece of minting art gone wrong. And to top it all off, some collectors have discovered weak strike errors on 1990p P quarters where the dies failed to fully impress the design into the planchette, leaving Washington's profile faint or the eagle barely visible, and when you combine that with clash die errors where design elements from one side are accidentally transferred to the other because of die collisions, you begin to see just how many incredible mistakes could be found in this single year and mint mark, all converging to create a perfect storm of rarity and fascination. So what happens when a single specimen combines multiple dramatic errors, such as being double struck off center on the wrong planchette, and with double die features you get a coin that is unlike anything else in existence, and that is exactly what happened with the most famous 1990 P quarter error ever. Discovered a coin that encapsulated multiple flaws in one piece, and when it appeared at a prestigious auction it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world as collectors with deep pockets battled fiercely to own it, driving the price higher and higher until it finally hammered at an unbelievable $56 million, a record that instantly catapulted this coin into legendary status alongside some of the most valuable coins in American history. And why would someone pay that much for a single quarter? Well, it comes down to the psychology of collecting, where rarity and uniqueness dictate value, because in the world of rare coins it is not about the face value or even the metal content, it is about owning something nobody else can replicate, and the 1990 P quarter with its astonishing errors represents exactly that, a once-in-a-lifetime piece of numismatic history that tells a story of chance, mistake and survival. And beyond its technical errors, this coin also carries historical significance because the early 1990s were a time of transition for US coinage, with technology changing and quality control evolving, and yet despite modern improvements, mistakes like this still managed to escape the mint undetected, proving that even in an era of high-tech processes, human oversight and machinery flaws can still create treasures. And this adds to the mystique because it shows that perfection is not always the end goal. In fact, it is imperfection that often creates the greatest masterpieces, and when such coins surface in the public they ignite waves of excitement, stories of people discovering them in old jars, pocket change or inherited collections, reminding us that treasures can hide in plain sight and that anyone can be lucky enough to stumble across a life-changing fortune in their spare change. And this possibility keeps collectors searching day after day, coin after coin, dreaming of being the next person to uncover a million-dollar error. And it is this very sense of adventure, discovery and hope that fuels the legend of the 1990 P quarter worth $56 million, and it is why this coin has become not just an object of wealth but also a symbol of the magic and mystery of numismatics. And when we think about the many different errors, from double dies to off-metal strikes to multiple strikes and misalignments, we realize that each one represents a different pathway to value, a different story of how a tiny mistake at the mint can ripple through history and eventually change lives. And this is why coin collecting continues to attract new enthusiasts every day, because the possibilities are endless and history is alive in each piece of metal. And the 1990 P quarter embodies all of that in one spectacular coin. So the next time you have spare change in your hand, remember that miracles can happen, that even the most ordinary looking quarter might hold secrets invisible to most eyes but obvious to the trained collector. And who knows, maybe one of you watching right now could be holding the next legendary coin destined to make headlines. So keep looking, keep searching, and never stop believing, because treasures are still out there. And the story of the 1990 P quarter worth $56 million proves that hidden value and extraordinary history can be found in the smallest and most unexpected places. And that is what makes this coin and the world of rare numismatics so endlessly exciting and inspiring.